Hi and welcome to First Player Marker. This is our first video that we're going to be uploading, and we're going to be talking about all things to do with board games. But we're going to kick off with our current top 10 as of April 2019. We're currently recording this in a place called Carnac in Brittany in France. So we're going to run down our top 10 from 10 down to our favourite game of all time. I'm Neil. I am the dad of this lad here, which is Joel. He's 11 years old. He's been playing games for about 4 years since I got into them, and has compiled his top 10 list of all of the games that he's played, which is quite a lot.
Yeah, it was very difficult because I had 48 very good games in my long list.
So we're going to kick off and keep this fairly short, but we're going to kick off with number 10. So after you.
So my number 10 game is a game called Who Did It? Basically, there's a poo in the middle of the floor, and you have to get rid of your animal cards to prove that they didn't do it.
Yeah.
It's really good fun. You have speed, get it, and basically really fun. Yeah.
So what you'd say is that it wasn't done by my tortoise.
It was
someone else's rabbit, and then everybody has to search for their rabbit card. Whoever gets their rabbit card out first then gets to say it wasn't my rabbit. It was until there's no other way of playing anymore, and then therefore that person's animal was guilty. It's produced by Blue Orange Games, which is part of Asmodee. So my number 10. So Joel said he had difficulty bringing down a long list, 48. My list was somewhat shorter, but I had trouble picking my number 10. It was a toss-up between Takenoko, which is a partly tile-laying game where you have a panda and you're growing bamboo, and a game called Azul, which won last year's Spiel des Jahres, which is a game about laying tiles, and actually tiling, laying these azulejo tiles in a 5x5 grid and scoring points. So probably Takenoko out of those two if I was held at gunpoint. Number 9.
My number 9 is King of Tokyo. It is a dice rolling game where you are trying to be King of Tokyo. You are taking out other monsters so that you can score the most points, which has to be 20, or kill all other monsters, and that is basically it. Really fun.
Yeah, great fun, and it's also my number 9. So we have complete sync up on that.
Yep.
So yeah, as Joel described it, you're rolling dice, gaining points or hitting other monsters. Yeah, good fun. Number 8.
My number 8 is a game called Dominion, where it's basically the birth of not role-playing games.
Deck builders.
Deck builders, yeah. So there's lots of cards that you can buy from. You have a certain amount of copper and a certain amount of points. You want to buy these cards to help you buy victory point cards, provinces, estates, gardens, and duchies.
Yeah.
That's my number 8.
Stack of expansions for it as well. My number 8 is the game that got me into modern board gaming, which is Carcassonne. So I first played that 4 years ago at a friend's house, expecting Monopoly, Cluedo, that kind of thing, and got this thing that just blew my mind. I don't play it as often as I used to, but it holds a special place in my heart because it introduced me to gaming.
Yeah.
So Carcassonne, if you haven't come across it, is a tile-laying game where you're building cities, roads, monasteries, and fields, and laying meeples down. It's the game that gave the world the meeple. It's an excellent entry game. It was also the rest of the family's first introduction to modern board gaming as well, because obviously it was mine. So that was my number 8, Carcassonne. So number 7.
My number 7 is a 2-player game called Star Wars Risk. there are 3 battles going on at once in the Star Wars universe. It is the 6th film in the double trilogy. It is, and you are and you are battling in space. So, well, one of you is battling. Well, 2 of you are battling in space. One of them you is trying to destroy the Death Star. The other is trying to protect. You are battling on the Death Star. One of you is trying to kill Darth Vader. The other's redeem Darth Vader. The other is trying to kill Luke. And then you are battling on Endor to break down the Endor shield, Death Star shield. Yeah. And that is Star Wars Risk, a great 2-player game.
It's really good. If you ever played Risk, Star Wars Risk, it's similar.
And simpler.
Oh no, it's not simpler. It's more complex. You've got some decisions involved.
Yeah.
Risk is basically dice rolling, and you take a few decisions about whether or not you're going to commit troops. But this has all of that, plus you make your decisions using cards, and you've got these 3 battlefronts that you are contending with about which one you're going to use. Great game. My number 7 is Codenames. Another Spiel des Jahres winner from a couple of years ago. And for me, that is either regular Codenames or Codenames Duet. I'm not quite so enamored with Codenames Pictures on the one time I've played it. But Codenames, you have a 5x5 grid, and you are trying to clue to your team members where your secret agents lie using linked words. So, for example, if you had the words that you were trying to clue were orange and apple, then you could give a clue word that says fruit. But you've got to be careful that that same clue word doesn't lead to your opponent's agents, or bystanders, or particularly the assassin. So if the assassin was a banana, then the last thing I'd want to give would be a clue that would potentially lead to that, which would be something like fruit. So I have to think of something much more specific for apple and orange. So that's Codenames. It's good in pretty much every variety. I mean, other people do really like Pictures one. I'm not so keen on that, but I've only played it once. So your number 7, Codenames. Number 6.
My number 6 is a game called One Night on Summit Werewolf. It's deception. It's a hidden role. It is about a night where 1 or 2 werewolves, along with possibly a minion, are trying to escape killing from villagers.
Yeah, that's yeah. You're on a team. You're either a werewolf team or you're the villagers team.
Or the tanner.
Or occasionally, if you've got him involved, the tanner who's on his own team and just wants
to die.
Which
suicidal.
is a pleasant game for an 11-year-old to be into. So yeah, Werewolf as a card game has been around for years and years and years. But One Night Werewolf condenses it all down so that the whole game is done within 10 minutes. And you can get an app that will narrate the roles about who wakes up during the middle of the night and does certain stuff and messes everything up. And so if you started as a werewolf, you may not finish as a werewolf, and vice versa. My number 6 is a 2-player game that my wife and I very much enjoy, which is called Patchwork by Uwe Rosenberg. So in Patchwork, you are your economy in Patchwork is buttons. You use those buttons to buy patches that you're going to sew onto your quilt, and gain more buttons. And the winner is the person at the end of the game who has the most buttons. That is a very short distillation of a game that's a lot more elegant, because these patches are odd shapes. They're basically tessellated tesselominos, or whatever they're called, tetrominos, multiple shaped pieces. It's about a half-an-hour game, but it's quite rich and rewarding.
It's like a fun, more interactive version of Tetris.
Yeah, there's a link to Tetris, but obviously it's 2-player. So that was my number 6. So for those of you who are watching, we're now halfway through, which means we move on to number 5.
My number 5 is a game we have played very often called Dixit. the aim of the game is to get 30 points by making clues that some people will get, some people won't, to cards. So
these cards are beautifully illustrated, and they're kind
there
of
are many
unusual
expansions.
images with lots of detail in them that you could pick up on, or like a thematic whole that you might say that whole picture reminds somebody of this, and you tell what's known as a story, which can be as much a few words really. And then everybody plays a card that they think from their hand that best fits that story. They all get shuffled over, they get revealed, and then people vote on which they think the real story was. And you're aiming to get to 30 points. It's a fantastic game with families.
Yeah.
It's one of your sister's favourite games.
Yeah, probably is. One.
Well, Animal Island is her favourite.
Second or third, I think.
But it was close on the top 3 when she was considering doing this. My number 5 is a game called Stone Age. It's just come back into print. Stone Age is what's known as a worker placement game. So the idea is you place meeples, remember those again, on action spaces, and you do the action. And your idea is you want to get the most points. Okay. There's a lot of decisions to make in Stone Age,
and it's quite long.
Yeah, and it's
not one that you have half an hour or an hour.
No, it's not. It's not a quick game by that stretch. But if people aren't taking too long over their decisions, it should be doable in 90 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes it takes longer than that when people take forever to decide whether or not they are going to try and gain some materials. Yes. But you roll dice for materials, you use materials to pay for things, and you get points.
Yeah.
Stone Age is worth checking out by watching Will Wheaton's tabletop episode of it, where there's really quite a good explanation. So there's a lot of things to consider.
And you've been talking about it for a long time.
I have, so I'm going to shut up. Which moves us on to number 4.
My number 4 is, as mentioned earlier, but this time it is the entire Codenames series. Codenames Duet, and Codenames Pictures. Am I correct?
Yeah, well, there are other versions of Codenames out there. There's Codenames Marvel.
I haven't played that.
Codenames Disney.
Haven't played that.
There'll probably be a Codenames Harry Potter.
Haven't played that. DC.
Probably will one day.
DC.
I don't know if they've got the license for it. Obviously, they've got a license with Disney, which is why they can do Codenames Marvel and Disney. Probably Codenames Star Wars, actually. Wouldn't surprise me. So this was, I say, Spiel des Jahres, designed by Vlaada Chvátil. I'll probably pronounce his name wrong. So we've already talked about that.
Yep.
But you like all of them.
Yes.
My number 4 is a game called Century Spice Road by Emerson Matsuuchi.
Much like Splendor, as you've told me.
It's a little bit similar to Splendor. So you are... it's a bit of a deck building element, which Joel's already mentioned, that style.
Dominion.
Where you are purchasing cards, but you are trading coloured cubes for other coloured cubes, and using those coloured cubes to buy things that get you points. So your aim of the game is to get the most points. Really fun, simple strategic game. That should be playable in 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Joel has already mentioned there is a game similar called Splendor. They're not that similar.
But you said it's like.
But I debated Splendor being on this list as well. I would play either, but generally speaking, board gaming community talks about Splendor and Century Spice Road as being very, very similar, and Century Spice Road being a Splendor killer. But I think there's no reason why you wouldn't own both if you enjoy both. Moving into our top 3. So, your third.
My number 3 is quite a newly released game called Planet. You have this dodecahedron that you are placing tiles on to earn points through gaining animals.
Yeah.
You will have a land type that you are supposed to go for. Animals of that land type will get you 1. Animals without that land type will get you 2, and however many pieces of that land type will get you a certain amount of points, as said on the card.
Yeah. So what Joel didn't mention is that this dodecahedron is your planet.
Yes.
and you are choosing from a range of 5-sided magnetic pieces to attach to your planet.
5-sided.
No, they're 5-sided. They're pentagons.
Oh.
And they have 5 land terrain triangles on them inside. And you're using those to gain the animals. So yeah, it's a fairly new game. Came out in 2018. I'm not somebody who gets nuts about game components.
But this is the first one.
This is the first one where the tactility of this game of taking magnets and sticking them on a dodecahedron
is
really
clever.
fun. It's really nice. So we first played this at my mum's house, and there was only 3 of us playing. So it's a maximum of 4. So there were spare tiles available.
Your mum
and my mum made her own. She wasn't playing the game, but she used the spare ones and the spare dodecahedron to make her own planet. It really pleased her as well.
So the land types are
I don't need to go into the details. So I mean, there are videos out there you can look up about how to play Planet. There's one particularly funny one there, which I'll possibly put a link in the description to. It just made me laugh quite a lot. My number 3 is another worker placement game. It's called Lords of Waterdeep. It's set in the Dungeons and Dragons universe, which is why it's called Waterdeep. However, I am not a Dungeons and Dragons player, and I've never been into that. But Lords of Waterdeep, it's worker placement. It's Lords of Waterdeep is, I say, worker placement. You're placing meeples again, and taking the actions accordingly, and using the cubes that you gain to get points and complete quests. There is an expansion for it which we don't have, which a lot of people say they don't play without it and they really enjoy it. But Lords of Waterdeep is it's a bit of a classic now, my number 3.
So it's number 2 now, as Daddy forgot to mention. My number 2 is Cobra Paw. You roll 2 die, and they will each have a symbol on them. You have to find the tile with the same 2 symbols, and put your finger on it. The first person to put their finger on it gets it, unless it's a draw, where it's the person closest to the middle. To win, you have to get 7 of these tiles in your stack, but you can steal.
I thought it was 6.
7.
Okay.
Or might be 6.
Maybe.
Yeah, but it's
might
very
be 7
fun.
if there's only 2 players.
It's very fun. I think it's a dexterity game. One of the two I like.
Yeah, I suppose it would be. So yeah, there's 36 dominoes effectively, and you roll the dice, and whoever gets it first gets that one, and first to a certain number. Very quick game. 5 to 10 minutes really.
Yeah. But the stealing adds a little bit of time as well.
My number 2, which could easily be interchanged with what I'll reveal will be my number 1, and when I first pulled this list together, and the first attempt of this video actually was number 1, is Dominion. It's been mentioned before, the daddy of the deck builders. I've played this game more than any other, with possibly the exception of Carcassonne. That's because I've been into Carcassonne longer. But Dominion I first played about 15 months ago, and it has shot to the top of my list. It is so quick to set up. We have 1 expansion for it, which is Intrigue.
We have 2.
We don't.
We have an update to the original game.
Oh yeah, and we've got the upgrade pack, so in some ways we've got another
half expansion.
Yeah, that. Because I didn't throw the old cards out, because why? Might as well keep them. You can use them again.
They're quite good.
And yeah, Dominions. It's very, very quick to learn. Great game. And finally, we're coming to our top of the shop, our number 1. So, what's your number 1, John?
My number 1 is When I Dream. It's from the same makers as Dixit, as mentioned earlier.
Not the same makers, but it's the same style as Dixit. So
and same producers, isn't it?
It depends where you are in the world, actually, I think. I think Dixit might. Well, it doesn't matter. It's going to be boring.
So you have double-ended cards and double-sided. that have a word on them. Only one word will be shown, obviously, and there's a picture on it. There'll be a dreamer who has a blindfold on, and that everyone will get a card with their role in it. There's the bogeyman, the sandman, and the fairy. The fairy will give will give good clues on their turn to give clues, so that they get it right, so that the dreamer could guess right.
Yeah.
The bogeyman gives wrong clues to try and ease them off the scent.
Yeah, so they get it wrong.
And the Sandman wants to get it equal, so that they get more points than everyone else. It is probably the most difficult.
Yeah, the Sandman's
definitely the easiest, though. Bogeyman.
Yeah.
You know, when I play it, I seem to do terribly.
The blindfold dreamer then at the end has to try and recall their dream, but their only things that they have to recall are the ones that they got right. So the more you get right,
they get more points.
Then it's going to be harder to remember your entire dream. So yeah, we had that since Christmas. It was our big Christmas present to the family, and clearly it's been a hit with a certain 11-year-old boy. My number one.
I thought was your number 2.
Yeah, I said they could be interchangeable. I actually have interchanged them, but hey. Pandemic by Matt Leacock. So in Pandemic, you are cooperating as a team, all of the players, and you are globe-trotting to try and prevent outbreaks and to cure 4 diseases around the whole globe. You win if you cure all 4 diseases. You lose if you A, run out of cards, B, have too many outbreaks, or C, what's the third?
Run out of tokens of one colour.
Yeah, run out of one type of disease. It's a game that...
Very difficult.
Even when you lose is good fun, isn't it?
Yes.
We've won a couple of times now, and so we probably need to increase the difficulty setting when we play it now.
Nah.
But there was, when I first tried to make this video, we had just played a game where we lost by 1 turn. We literally had taken our eye off the ball, having cured the blue disease. We had everything we needed to complete the game.
But then there was this massive
outbreak. And then we had outbreaks. And they had chain outbreaks. And it was all my fault, because his role was quarantine specialist. And if I'd have let him go to Atlanta, we would have won. But I said no. But it's a game that's actually as fun to lose as it is to win.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But it's annoying.
Yeah, no one likes to lose. So that's our top 10s. Thank you for watching. Depending on the YouTube rules, because he's 11, I don't know whether you'll be able to leave comments below. But if you do, let us know what you think. Let us know what you might like to make other videos about. I have no desire about being a YouTube star, but Joel has slightly different ambitions.
And also video gaming YouTube as well.
So yeah, I know we're going to be
maybe
at some
if I
point...
get one, I'll leave a link in the description as well.
Yeah. So thank you for watching First Player Marker. I've been Neil.
I am Joel.
And we will see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.